You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again.
If you're listening right
one
now
day at
and
a time.
wondering, can I
Thanks
really
for
do
joining.
this? Can I heal? Can I rebuild? Can I feel whole again? I want you to know that yes, you can. That's exactly why I created the Believing in You group. Hello, my amazing, beautiful listeners. How are you? Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time. Thank you to those who have been commenting, sharing, especially during the summer song series. I think I said that right. I've had a lot of you email your songs. Please feel free to go over to Spotify. I know you all have different platforms that you listen to the podcast on, but if you do listen to it on Spotify, there is a way for you, if you click on the episode link and scroll down just a little bit, you can leave a comment. And several of you have shared interest in what other people's songs are. I think some of you are trying to collect your own playlist. And don't forget that I have that playlist that I've created in the show notes around all of those summer series songs. So if you are looking for a healing playlist that's already created, you can go there. But again, it's just been super fun to see all of your all's favorite songs and what you're sharing, giving feedback, leaving comments, following all the things to make this spread, to make the message spread, the resource, this free resource spread. It's why I do it. I want more and more people to be able to get the support they need during this really challenging time. I actually thought about this episode wanting to share this topic with you this past weekend when I was doing a workout. My regular gym was closed, so I thought I'll just go do a quick yoga iso class. And I was like, oh, I'll just take it easy this weekend. And about halfway through, I remembered, well, my body remembered what iso really was. And I'm abbreviating that. It's isometrics for those of you that don't know what the heck I'm talking about. But doing an isometric workout, I was specifically doing an isometric yoga workout, but isometric is all about creating tension without actually moving the joints in your body. And so imagine pressing your palms together in front of your chest, and you're not lifting, you're not lowering your arms, you're just squeezing, squeeze, creating tension between your arms. Your muscles get on fire, your hands start to shake, and you just hold it, you stay there. And it's that static hold that you're creating that's working the muscles, working the body in a completely different way. And in the middle of the workout, the instructor, we were pressing and holding this one position, and she said, lean into the opposition. Imagine the opposition. So if I'm holding my arm up, flexing my muscle, she said, imagine someone pushing against your arm and you're trying to lean into that oppositional push. And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, it just resonated with me on such a deep level around the experience of being human, the experience of healing from trauma, and how so many times in life, as a human in general, we're looking for ways, creative ways. Our brain can be very creative here, but our brain is always looking for ways to get out of that opposition, right? To not lean into it. Like, what the heck? You're telling me to lean into the opposition, lean into the stress, lean into the shaking, lean into the fire? Like, heck no, I'm trying to find ways out of it. In fact, a lot of times we get clients, Lana and I, a lot of times we'll get clients that are literally like, tell me how to get out of this, right? So this idea of leaning into it, this idea of isometric workout, when we're talking about our healing journey, healing from trauma, can be really interesting. And I want to talk about that today. Again, if you've ever taken an isometric yoga class, especially hot ones, you know that it's not the kind of movement that you see that's happening outside. I'm not in there lifting really big weights. I'm not on a rower. I'm not on a bike. I'm not on a treadmill. I'm not doing anything that you can visibly see my muscles working and stretching. You're holding postures, positions, and activating the muscles that don't always show on the surface. It's that kind of strength that you're going to feel really deep inside. In fact, that's what the instructor kept saying. Like, really go deep, really feel the muscle in your body that you might not know is there. And boy, did I feel that the day and 2 days after that workout. I felt muscles that I haven't felt in a very long time because typically my workout is very outwardly, visibly, right? Strengthening the muscles by weightlifting and strength training. It's exactly how I want to talk about the nervous system healing today. And when you're healing from betrayal, when you're healing from relational abuse, healing from the nervous system chaos that you never consented to, by the way, this healing is isometric. It's quiet, it's inside, but it is absolutely transformational in your strength. And that's the message that I really want to convey today. My session this past weekend with yoga, it felt so symbolic to the journey of life. And part of the journey of life is navigating hard, and navigating trauma is really hard. And understanding our nervous system, how it works, and really learning the language of your system as designed and what it's learned to adapt to. When we learn about the body and really understand how it works, its role in everything, your body's role in everything, your emotions, your perceptions, your thoughts, your beliefs. It is so empowering when you start to learn this, because what may feel impossible to understand, to get through, to overcome, or what feels maybe just way too overwhelming right now can actually shift. You can shift out of that, from that, through that, when you understand your body this way, when you learn to work with it and maybe not so much against it. But after betrayal, your nervous system doesn't feel safe in your own body because it got wired to survive a relationship that wasn't safe. Your system might be living in that constant sympathetic activation. It's like waiting for the shoe to drop, that phrase, right? Waiting for the bomb to go off, the next lie, the next betrayal, the next stonewalling, whatever that is that your system is anticipating. That's what it's become used to, or just might want to shut down altogether, where you feel frozen or numb or detached. And I want to stress and highlight and make sure you hear me correctly. This is not weakness. This is not a weakness in your nervous system or your body. This is actually your brilliant body trying to survive. And there is nothing wrong with you for feeling that kind of dysregulation, which I really want to debunk a myth that I hear a lot in this work, sometimes on social media, and the messages that are shared often just share partial truths, and we're not really conceptualizing the full truth, especially when it comes to the nervous system. But one of the myths that can sometimes get translated or misunderstood is that once you're healing, once your nervous system, quote, regulated, that you won't be triggered anymore. You won't feel stressed, that you'll just be calm and grounded all the time. That is not how this works. I know, just maybe hit the pause button and swear at me. That's okay. Hang in there with me. It's not how it works. And it's not supposed to work that way by design. Again, not because something's wrong or you're broken. And especially not when your trauma that you're experiencing comes from the relationship, from betrayal, from the very people that you were supposed to feel safe with. So I want to be very clear. Getting triggered doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that you are back at square one, even though I know it feels that way. Totally get that. It doesn't mean you're not healing. I think this is really important to slow this down and work through the resistance to believe this. It's so important to understand this truth. Healing, like real nervous system healing, means that your system starts to trust you again. It means you can notice when you are activated. And instead of staying stuck in that survival, you know how to come back. You have the tools, you have choice. You don't maybe abandon yourself in that activation. That's what regulation really looks like. That's what the kind of strength that I'm talking about in those isometric healing is, what we're really trying to work towards, and that strength that we're trying to create. A lot of times clients will say like, okay, Amie, but like, what does healthy nervous system regulation, what does it even look like? And I totally get that, because a lot of us going through this or never really experienced healthy nervous system regulation, like we don't know what it feels like. We don't know how that feels, how that experience feels in our bodies. And we certainly don't know what that felt like in the relationship. I know my system was trained, was conditioned to constantly scan for the slightest change in tone, a shift in expression, steps down the stairs, like footsteps down the stairs, right? Was a trigger for a long time. A delayed text message when someone's not responding right away, the cold shoulder, you walk by somebody in the store and they don't say hi, that immediate assumption that you did something wrong. Oh no, right? That kind of response, you're conditioned to feel that way, to experience that way. And so when I sensed that something was, quote, off, my body would immediately freeze, hold my breath, wait for the fallout, wait for the lie, wait for the anger, wait for the, right, the moment that he would flip or that something would flip. And that, that wasn't living, that was bracing. And so when someone told me, you just need to regulate your nervous system, I honestly didn't know what that meant. What does it even feel like when you've lived in survival for so long and don't trust peace anymore? And so this is why we start small. This is why it starts with moments, micro experiences of safety. I see this with a lot of my divorced ladies who are navigating the journey of getting into another relationship again. We want to start small and create micro experiences. We want to create healthy, corrective, safe emotional experiences, right? And it makes sense. And I just want to validate, like when you start to learn this, it feels like you're letting your guard down. And I was like, no, I got to keep my gloves on. I have to keep my hands up, ready in that fighting position. We need to learn what it feels like to let that guard down. Again, not all the way, but just enough to start to breathe again. Healing doesn't mean you're regulated 24/7. It means that you start to notice when you're not, and you know how to come back. It means you start to feel safe within yourself before anyone else, because your body learns you're not abandoning it anymore. There's a particular person in my life that every time they would send me a message that says, "Hey, do you have time to talk?" I would notice my body go into that activation. It would go into this like freeze mode. And I would immediately be like, oh no, I did something wrong and I'm going to get in trouble. Like that was my first thought. Right. And that's based off a previous trauma that I experienced with this person. And so my body is still reacting that way. I've had to work with those micro experiences to put my guard down just a little bit, to take that deep breath, ground in my own sense of self, where I'm at, in my own truth, my own body, and regulate that nervous system and go, okay, I'm okay. I may have done something and I can own that. Not gonna die. Like I have to slow my system down, and I get to do that. So today I really just wanted to share and walk through what a healthy nervous system was designed to do to begin with, so that you know what you're aiming for here, and so that you're not getting confused with that myth. Your nervous system was designed to move. It was designed to shift, to respond, to rise up when there's pressure or stress, and to settle when that threat has passed. It's supposed to flex between the activation that we experience in life and then flex to the rest. It's not meant to live in one state all the time. Again, going back to the analogy of working out, if I was in that one state of lifting intense weights all the time, every day, right? That's too much activation. There's not enough flex. I need those active recovery days, hence the yoga, where I'm not doing that outwardly stretching, lifting, pressing, really going deep, heavy activation. I'm doing more of this internal isometric type of activation on my body, and I'm touching on muscles still, right? I'm still shaking, I'm still sweating, but it's a different kind of experience. It's resting the big muscles and it's still working some of the smaller muscles. Am I sweating as much? No. Am I as tired? No. It's a different experience. It's a flex. A healthy nervous system isn't about always feeling calm. If every day my workout was laying down on my mat and doing nothing, I wouldn't exercise my muscles. I wouldn't grow the muscles. There wouldn't be capacity for the stress. It's not about being unbothered or in Zen 24/7. It's not about never getting activated, right? That's the myth. And again, if we bring it back to the metaphor of working out, if we don't ever move our muscles, if we don't ever strengthen that, then we're susceptible to injury, to harm. We're susceptible to weakness. We're susceptible to deep fatigue. We're susceptible to injury, to strain, even small stressors. When we haven't built the capacity to hold it, small stressors can overwhelm the system because they haven't been conditioned to handle it. If we don't work our muscles, if we don't build capacity, there's rigidity, there's tension, right? Those underused muscles, they become stiff, they become tight, and that limits your range of motion. My youngest son just had surgery on his shoulder to fix his labrum, and he was limited in his ability to rotate that shoulder and have range of motion. There was no room for flexibility as he was healing that injury. Well, one of the main reasons why he had that injury is because he hadn't done enough strengthening around those smaller ice muscles, right? He was all about going to the gym and pumping really, really, really heavy weight. But because he missed the isometric, the small muscle, the tension, the capacity to support the heavy lifting, it slowly limited, made it more rigid, more tension on those smaller muscles, and he tore it. Now, he had to have surgery, which is really, really painful. And he slowly had to rebuild those underused muscles to create more of that range of motion and flexibility. When we don't do any of this work, and really we're losing resilience. We lose the ability to bounce back. We lose the ability to recover. We lose the ability to adapt when different situations in our life as a human need us to adapt to. The same is about your nervous system. If we don't work with our nervous system, if we don't practice coming back to safety, build capacity, stretch gently into that discomfort, then we are more susceptible to that overwhelm from triggers. We become more susceptible to intense overwhelm over those triggers. We emotionally shut down or we emotionally overreact. We live in that constant state of high alert, that hypervigilance. We're in that mode all the time. And so we're now misreading what real safety is and what real danger is. And that just feels very powerless because we don't know how to respond to stress when it shows up. What our nervous system is designed to do, it's designed to know how to move. It's designed to know how to respond and recover, to mobilize when there's real stress. And then it comes back to center when that threat has passed. A healthy nervous system is fluid. It has like a rhythm to it. It adapts to movement. It's not going to hijack your life. So instead of staying stuck in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, you start to notice the cues a little bit sooner. You can start to support yourself sooner. You can come back to safety a little bit sooner.
If you're listening right now and wondering, can I really do this? Can I heal? Can I rebuild? Can I feel whole again? I want you to know that yes, you can. That's exactly why I created the Believing in You group coaching program. It's not just about surviving betrayal, abuse, divorce. It's about becoming the woman who deeply believes in her own worth, who trusts herself again, and who's ready to take that next right step, no matter what her past looks like. This program gives you tools, the support, the teaching, the worksheets, the community to move forward with clarity and confidence. If you are feeling stuck, unsure, Or like you've lost sight of yourself, this was made for you. Go to amiewoolsey.com and check out Believing in You or click the link in the show notes. I would love to support you. And here's the most important part. A healthy nervous system isn't one that never gets dysregulated. It's one that learns it's safe to come home again. But if it's not safe to come home again, then you are shifting your nervous system and adapting it to something that isn't safe. And now it is dysregulated and it's not doing its job. It's hyper or hypo, just like the isometric class. It's not about the absence of tension. It's building strength to hold the tension without collapsing and then knowing when it's time to release. You're holding tension not to break yourself, to build capacity. So I'm sitting there and I'm holding a pose and I'm shaking and I'm sweating and my muscles are on fire, but I'm also very present in that moment. I'm very alive. I'm absolutely in choice. I'm choosing to be in that class. I'm choosing to hold it, choosing to stay there, and I'm holding steady. This is what nervous system work is like after betrayal. You're learning to hold the discomfort, not avoid it, not collapse in it. It's holding it with that strength. Let's say you set a boundary and you want to absolutely vomit after you communicate that boundary. When you don't, maybe text them back, even though your whole body is screaming to text them back, but leaning into the back and forth and back and forth. And these text messages, and these text message fight, it isn't safe. It isn't creating that healthy regulation in your nervous system. When you share your voice, tell your truth, speak up, have a voice, and it's really, really shaky, that's isometric healing, right? You're speaking your truth and you're leaning into something really uncomfortable and it's shaky. Palms might be sweating, but that's nervous system healing. That's betrayal healing strength. Doesn't always look like peace from the outside, but inside, you're really learning to hold yourself with more of that steadiness. But where I often see things go sideways, especially after a betrayal or when you've experienced long-term relational trauma, your system wires itself around threat. And so it doesn't feel safe enough to come back down again. So you either end up stuck in that kind of low grade stress all the time, or I see it where we swing feeling fine 1 minute and then totally flooded and shut down the next. You might an email or a text from someone and your system is responding as if the original traumatic experience happened all over again, right? You're not too sensitive. That's happening. You're not overreacting. Your system just got trained to treat everything like an absolute possible threat. So, for example, let me explain what I just said there. I just remembered how this played out for me. Maybe you can relate. So, you know how every phone, when you get a text, it has like a ding or there's some sound, right? That when you get a text message, it makes a noise. Well, during a really challenging time through my divorce, I was being absolutely bombarded through text message from my ex. So every time that ding went off on my phone, whether it was from him or not, my nervous system had an absolute flooded response. And I'd look at my phone and it was like, oh, that's just my daughter. Okay, yeah, okay. And I'd have to calm down and be like, okay, that's just McKenna. But I could like feel the energy of the revving of the engine, right? Just because the ding went off. At that point, I had to be very mindful. So I needed to take some responsibility, make some adjustment, protect my system from that because it wasn't helpful for my nervous system to get that kind of response every single time I had a text come through, right? My nervous system wasn't trained, it wasn't regulated. So we're not trying to never feel stress again or avoid every trigger. That's not the goal. What we're trying to do is teach the system how to right size its responses again, right? We just need the right amount of stress to go along with the right threat. My system in that example was having a very oversized response to an incoming message from my phone. I needed to teach my system all over again to know the moment a real threat was coming in and when it's just a hard moment that I can actually handle. My system didn't know the difference. A healthy nervous system isn't one that's always calm. It's one that knows how to meet the moment of real threat or a bite-sized stress and then come back to safety. So we do that by learning to stretch our system just enough, not too much, not too little, to grow that capacity. So that might mean telling the truth about what you're experiencing, even though you're really terrified. It might mean making a new decision, saying no to a pattern that maybe you're always saying yes to. For those of you who are trying on boundaries right now, maybe it's going to stretch your system just to write out the boundaries that you know you need. Maybe it's too much to go express them, make the request. Maybe just writing them out is that isometric healing. And we feel the stress, the shaky, the sweaty, but we're going to hold it. We're going to increase your capacity, increase your resilience, increase your strength in the belief that you deserve and have a right to boundaries. This might mean speaking up when you believe you're being gaslit or emotions minimized. Might mean walking away from a circular argument that's just going around and around instead of staying in it and trying to fix it. Maybe it's choosing to be still instead of people pleasing. Maybe it's not jumping in to soothe your partner or the other person, allowing them to be upset, allowing them to have their own emotions, because your isometric healing is learning to soothe yourself and to hold your space. These are your strength reps. You're learning what it means to sit with that discomfort without abandoning yourself, to do that really hard thing that you know is the healthy thing to do, but from that place of self-honoring rather than self-abandonment. And that sweet spot is uncomfortable, but safe. And then we rest. I did the isometric workout and then I laid on my mat. I rested my body. When we rest, we resource, we regulate. And after betrayal, this is not a luxury, it is medicine. Sleep, walks, breath work, crying to a trusted friend, a bath, holding your pet, letting yourself laugh again. These things aren't to erase the trauma. They're to fill up that tank so that trauma doesn't drain you dry. So just like the muscles in your body, when you build the strength, you grow the muscle, so will your nervous system. That might look like stress tolerance. When we grow our nervous system, your tolerance for stress increases. For example, when my nervous system was so intolerant, right? My nervous system was responding to everything as that intense, heightened threat alert. So I remember like my kids would come home from school, they'd get off the bus, they're running in the house and they're waving all of their papers around. Mom, I need this. And mom, we need to do this. And mom, book fair. And mom. And my nervous system would respond to that stress like a 911. That's what happens when we don't regulate our nervous system. Because I think we can all agree, I don't know, maybe I'm just different, but the book fair and getting the money to the school and all of like that was stressful. That was just a little stressful, but not heightened threat, I'm going to die kind of stress that my nervous system was responding to it, ripping the paper out of my kid's hand and being like, oh my gosh, it's the last thing that I need to deal with and wanting to throw it in the trash, right? So when you have a regulated, I don't know, maybe I'm totally alone in that one, but if you have the healthy regulated nervous system, I would be like, all right, hand the paper over, right? I'm going to feel some stress. I'm going to notice that that's a little bit annoying to have to collect all the money. I don't know if they do this anymore, but like back in the day, we would have to get the exact amount of change to the teacher for the books or whatever my kid wanted at the bookstore, like the exact amount of change. Oh my gosh. Just annoying amount, right? Like it's annoying, a little stressful. I'm feeling it right now as I talk about it again, as I recall back to those days. But it's also just very alarming how I can also see the level of which my nervous system was responding to that at that time, and it was not how I'm responding to it right now as I'm talking about it. When your nervous system is regulated in a healthy way in a stressful experience, something hard happens, you're going to feel more of that resilience instead of feeling afraid, or you just feel like, oh my gosh, this one more thread that's getting pulled out of my shirt. And before I know it, I'm going to be standing here naked with no shirt. Like I always felt like just like the thread just kept pulling and pulling and pulling. And I'm getting less and less and less of this shirt. I'm afraid. Oh, that feeling is very, very real to recall. Where a more regulated nervous system, I'm going to feel some resilience. I'm going to be able to bounce back. That one thing isn't going to fray me. You get to hold more space, more joy, more challenge, more presence when you have a healthy, regulated nervous system. You develop that self-trust that I talk about all the time. Trust in your capacity to handle the situation. Trust that, which this is extremely powerful and important when betrayal trauma told you that you would never trust again. So developing that trust in your own capacity to handle hard. Again, it reminds me of when I started dating Scott again, and my mom was like, "Oh my gosh, are you sure?" Like, oh, just as a normal mother would, like, worry, like, "What if you get hurt again? Or what if it happens?" And I remember at that point in my dating and in my healing, and I had done enough of this regulating my nervous system, my response to her was like, "Yeah, I know. That happens again. It's called life and sucks." Like, I know that can happen, but I trusted in my capacity to handle if that happened again. I knew I would be okay. I knew that I could do life alone. I knew that I wasn't going to die. I knew the lawyer I could go, like, right? I trusted in that capacity because my nervous system was regulated. So, how can you tell if you're moving more into that regulated space? I'll go back to triggers. If you feel triggered, you're gonna, again, that's not the bad thing. That's not the wrong thing. Your system will likely feel triggers, but you know how to come back without spiraling into the abyss, right? You have your toolkit, you have your trauma kit, you know the tools and you use them and you know how to come back to present. You hold a boundary, maybe without needing someone else's permission or even approval of the boundary, because you know it's what you want, what you need, and that's enough. Maybe it's speaking truth, even if your voice is shaky, even if you're hesitant, even if you're not quite sure of the outcome, but you do it anyway because you know that you're going to feel safer in your body when you do. You will recognize those patterns, those red flags a lot sooner, and you'll start to trust that you won't show up in those dysregulated experiences, in those old patterns. You're going to trust that maybe you walk away, you hold the boundary, you say no. You'll start to tell the difference between real urgency that's trauma driven versus true intuition. You'll start to let more joy in your life. That can feel really scary. I really remember what that feels like. But you're going to let more of those joyful moments in, maybe even in your relationship. Allow yourself to have maybe some joyful moments in your relationship, even if it's small, even if it's fleeting, and you're going to let yourself stay with it. Really, a regulated nervous system is trusting that your system is working for you, not against you, that your body is learning what safety is. This right here, this is the result that we're looking for in this healing isometric type of work. It's the inside out work. One last thing that I want to name before I wrap this up. So much of your nervous system dysregulation was relationally formed. It came from being in that relationship that wasn't safe, which means part of your healing will happen relationally too, from people who don't gaslight your reality, through boundaries that reinforce your self-trust, through building a relationship with yourself that is rooted in present moment that is rooted in your self-compassion. Your nervous system doesn't just need quiet Zen moments of laying there doing nothing. It needs to feel safe enough to be seen, to be with someone who doesn't make your body brace all the time, to stop waiting for the bomb to drop. And if that someone right now is you, that's enough, because regulation begins in that space where you stop abandoning yourself. The next time that you feel like maybe you're not healing fast enough or you're too triggered to be doing well, I just want you to remember that your system is responding. You're not broken. Okay, so I hope that you, if anything, have learned that you don't need to be perfectly regulated to be healing. You just need to keep showing up for yourself, especially in the moments that you used to abandon yourself. That right there is your nervous system isometric strength. And every time you choose yourself in that moment that you used to freeze or fawn, you're not just surviving, you're rewiring your nervous system. And that's what healing looks like. Healing doesn't mean you never shake, doesn't mean you don't sweat, that you're not uncomfortable. It means you know how to stay, to breathe, to come back to yourself. That's the quiet power of your strong nervous system. You're starting to choose safety on your own terms. You're starting to choose uncomfortable, shaky on your own terms and letting it build your resilience, because that kind of strength, betrayal never gets to take from you. You are the creator of your life, and you get to choose the life that you want because you can. Take care, everybody.